So today I'm really just going to record the table because we're going to have our little people to act out the whole scene. But today we're looking at people in juvenile court, and I've just given you guys a handout. And so I want to kind of introduce you to the different players in the judicial circuit serving in juvenile court so that you know what to expect when you get a case assigned to you. And Pat, I'm assuming that when you went through with Stephanie with training, that she talked to you about the appointment order, how you get assigned to a case and all that kind of stuff. A little bit. So just a quick breakdown is that we don't assign people, we ask you if you want the case. And so if we feel like it's a good fit for you, based on your preferences and your availability, we'll call you and ask you. We'll give you as much information as we have about the case going into it. And if you say, yes, I'll take that case, we file an appointment order, we have the judge sign it, we file it with the clerk's office, then you get an electronic copy of it as well as a hard copy, and you can...
And that's the ticket.
That's your golden ticket, and it's got all the things that you're allowed to access, which is basically anything. Right. And anything that you run into a problem gathering, like medical records, somebody says, no, I can't give you that because of HIPAA, call us and we'll help walk you through that. Okay. So today I have my people. This is the way I like to teach this unit because I'm a very visual person. So, at the center of our story today is going to be the baby, okay? So, baby Susie. And we're going to pretend that this box of Kleenexes is their mobile home where they live. So, here's our little baby, and I'm going to say that this is her mama. She's very young. And they live in this mobile home, and her boyfriend is sometimes there. So here's boyfriend, who may or may not be. Yeah, it'll be okay. He may or may not be baby daddy. Yeah, for some reason the screen goes dark, but the camera stays on, so it seems to work okay. All right, so in our little situation here, and we're going to walk this case all the way through the system so you see kind of what takes place at each juncture. And we haven't really gotten to this worksheet yet, but you will need your worksheet as well as those colored cards that tell you about the hearing, or you've got a black and white copy, that's fine too. Okay, so once upon a time here in the mobile home park, we have mom and her boyfriend and her baby, and they live together here in the mobile home park. And the power company has come out and turned off the power at this house, and it's wintertime. And this little gal, this lady over here, is the next door neighbor, and she lives on a fixed income, and she lives over here in the mobile home park. She knows they have a baby. She went over to see if there was anything she could do when the baby came. She knows the power's been cut off, and she has seen a lot of cars coming and going late at night. She has heard a lot of racket over there, some screaming and yelling, some glass shattering, things like that. So she does what any good citizen does, and she calls the CPS intake line. And we talked about this a little bit yesterday, and I'll write that number up here so you know what it is. So it always starts with a report. A report is made to the CPS intake line. And that is, CPS stands for Child Protective Services. This is a good number for you to have, 1855 Georgia Child. The two of you are both former educators, so you know what a mandated reporter is, and I won't spend a lot of time on that. But a CASA is a mandated reporter just like a teacher is. Once you have been sworn in, it's expected that if you see somebody abusing their child at Dollar General that you're going to call and alert the authorities. So this story starts with our neighbor, will say her name is Edna, and Edna calls the CPS intake line and says, I don't know what's going on with my neighbors, but they have a newborn, they have an infant over there, and the power's been turned off, and it's pretty cold outside. I hear some fighting and carrying on, and I know that things are not good. So we're going to put Edna to the side. So the next person who gets involved is going to be our CPS investigator, okay? And you'll notice down at the bottom of this worksheet, it says CPS investigators may be called as a witness throughout the court case. So this is your CPS investigator who actually comes on the scene pretty early in the case. So the CPS investigator comes out, and the CPS investigator rings the doorbell, And I'm just going to give you sort of just a um, synopsis of what sometimes happens. What frequently happens is that when she knocks on the door, she notices some immediate concerns. Both parents appear to be under the influence. She's had a lot of training in that, so she knows pupils are dilated. There's a smell of a strange smell in the air. They're behaving erratically. This guy's real angry, and he takes off. So he just takes off on foot. He just goes off into the woods or to a friend's house. And she's screaming and crying, please don't take my baby, please don't take my baby. And the CPS investigator says, look, we want to do everything we can to keep from taking your kid into foster care. These are those reasonable efforts that we talked about. So she says to the mother, she says, look, would you be willing to take a drug test right now? And the mother says, oh, well, I'm going to go ahead and tell you that if you drug screen me, I'm going to test positive. And the CPS worker says, thank you for being honest with me. What will you test positive for? Marijuana. Now, let me tell you why almost all of these mamas say this right off the bat. And this happens in court, in open court. Oh, if you test me, I'm going to test positive. You don't even need to test me. I'm going to test positive for marijuana. Why do you think they say that?
That's the least.
Because that's the very least of what they've been taking. They know that if they admit, I've been taking marijuana, then it's counted as a positive. Somebody says she admitted to use of marijuana, and they won't find out that I also use meth. So we talked a little about the dangers of marijuana, and the other day, you and I did. One of the things that you will notice with folks who take meth is that they take the marijuana to calm down from the effects of the methamphetamine. So you often don't have just a methamphetamine positive. You often have a methamphetamine and a marijuana positive at the same time. But our little mom here knows, because she's been around, she knows that if you go ahead and cop to the marijuana, sometimes they won't even bother to test you. And so marijuana in the eyes of the law is a whole lot less significant than the marijuana. And it is a lot safer in certain ways. And so we're not going to get all into that today. But let's just say, for the sake of this example, that this CPS worker says, well, I appreciate that, but I really need the science, the laboratory testing to add up to that. So I'm going to call a drug screener to come over here. So they call another lady to come out, and she's going to collect a urine specimen. And this is usually an observed drug screen by someone of the same gender, okay? So she takes the drug screen. The drug screen is positive for meth and marijuana. We'll go ahead and throw benzos on top of it just because that's another common thing around here. So she's also taking Xanax, which she doesn't have a prescription for, to kind of chill herself out or whatever. So the drug screener's job is done. They go over here. All right, and so the investigator says to the mom, now listen, methamphetamine is not safe. You cannot use methamphetamine and care for an infant. There's also a lot of concerns here. Your house is not safe. There's dog feces everywhere. There's drug paraphernalia. There's some fire hazards. There's holes in the floor and rodents. This is not safe for this infant. So we're going to have to move your baby. No, please don't take my baby. And this is a very tenuous, emotions are high in this situation. Sometimes law enforcement has to be called. Sometimes this caseworker has to call their supervisor to come out there to help them collect this child. Now,
this person who is from Child Protective Services, they can initiate all this on their own without checking with anybody else.
They would have been communicating with their supervisor throughout this process. So at the point that they kind of made their initial assessment and it looks like they're going to have to intervene, they would have communicated with their supervisor. I'm here. I'm at the place where the call came from, and I'm in the trailer park. We're going to have to remove this baby. We're seeing if there's a family member that can be the foster parent at this point.
And the drug screening situation, you have on site.
They provided
now,
on site drug screening.
Do you also take that same sample and send it off to a lab?
If she disputes what the preliminary result is on the test, she can pay to have it sent off, or the department will send it off to the lab. I will tell you, because we used to offer drug screening, CASA used to, 99.9% of the time the instant test is correct.
Okay.
So, and the folks that are in that world know that. They know that. Now, to buy some time, sometimes they'll say, I dispute that. But if that instant test came back for meth and there are other signs in the home that there's meth use going on, she's going to remove this child. So the question now becomes, who are we removing the child to? Now, the child can be placed with a fit and willing relative. And that can be for up to 45 days without court intervention. But just so that I can introduce you to this whole scene involving foster care, we're going to assume that she doesn't have a decent relative that she can call. The CPS worker is going to say, do you have a mama? Do you have a daddy? Do you have a sister? Do you have a brother? Is there any fit and willing adult relative that we can take? And I've been in situations and watched the reactions of these parents before where they say, well, you could call so and so. Oh, no. Are you going to drug screen him? No, don't call him. Well, you could call my mama, but she's on an ankle monitor and, she can't leave the house. Well, you could call my sister. She lives over in South Atlanta. And, oh, well, her boyfriend's a sex offender. You can see them rattling off all the people they know, and they all get quickly eliminated is what often happens. So the CPS worker says, we're going to take the baby because they've been contacting their supervisor. Their supervisor says, the judge give us the green light. Go ahead and take this baby. I'm going to put the baby in a car seat in my car, and I'm going to take the baby to a foster home. So mom's screaming, crying, carrying on over in the trailer park. We'll just move her over there. Okay. End scene. All right. So now what is happening in the background is the caseworker is finding a place to take this child. And usually someone in their office was already making those contacts while they were dealing with the removal. Because the CPS investigator's job is not going to be to forever be this child's caseworker. Their job is really that emergency first responder type thing. So the Department of Family and Children's Services, acting through this person, has custody now, physical custody of this baby because they have taken her. So they got to put her in a foster home somewhere. So we're going to get our little foster mom and dad.
Okay, so let me just stop.
Yeah.
The mother, now you put her out of the picture, but where?
She's still at the trailer.
She's at the trailer.
She's still at the trailer.
She doesn't have to go.
She doesn't have to go anywhere. If she was being physically abused and there were not drugs involved, the department might say, look, get in the car and I'll take you to a battered women's shelter with your baby. But because she was using drugs, yes, it's important that she gets somewhere safe, and the CPS worker will probably give her a list of resources. Here's a place you can stay. Here's a church you can call. Here's a homeless shelter that you can go stay in. Best of luck. See you at court on, Monday. Right. All right. So the CPS investigator has done their job and removed this child. And sometimes they're also the one that transports the baby to the foster home. So we have a couple in the nearby community who have gone through the classes to become the foster parents. And so now we have the baby safe. Okay. So the baby is somewhere safe. So the CPS worker has to file papers and get ready for this hearing, basically. They have to file the dependency removal order, which we talked about, and I'll write that up here again. They have to go file it with the clerk's office, and their attorney will help them with all that process. So we have the dependency.
This is the investigator still at this point.
Yes.
Okay.
And or their supervisor. Okay, so the dependency removal order is that first document that's filed that has just a little, hey, Stephanie, can you give us a copy of a DRO to look at, if you got a minute? Thanks. So, do what?
Hi,
yeah, Pat's in here today with me and Roberta. So the dependency removal order is their document to show why they removed this child in an emergency fashion, okay? It may say something to the effect of CPS received an intake on a 9-month-old baby, there was no power in the house was deplorable, both parents appeared to be under the influence, the man in the house left the home, the mother admitted to drug use and then tested positive for 3 different drugs of abuse. She had no prescription for the benzos. They could find no fit and willing relatives, so this is where we are. Okay, so that first hearing that we're going to go into is that preliminary protective order, and you've got that document that tells you all about it.
Now, is the mother served with this order?
She is usually just told on the telephone, be in court on this and this day.
Because it happens.
It happens very fast.
So it was 72 hours?
It has to happen within 72 hours of the removal. Okay, so on your worksheet that says people in juvenile court, let's talk a little bit about who's going to be in court. I'm going to move her out of the way. I even have our very own Judge Clow, and he looks like our judge, even kind of young brunette. Okay, so You'll notice on this worksheet, and we're videotaping, by the way. Our primary judge, thank
and I
you.
will stay over here.
Here's a dependency removal order if y'all want to take a look at that. So our judge is Judge Jeremy Clow, and I've even filled his name in on the worksheet for you. And you'll notice that it also says in some circumstances it's another judge. You remember why I told you sometimes we have another
they're
judge?
reclusive because they've had something with the judge or the firm or the lawyer or something.
Which just happened.
Just happened on this case
Yeah.
that y'all are watching right now, yes. So because Judge Clow was a prosecutor who prosecuted sex crimes, occasionally we have a parent who the name rings a bell to him because he prosecuted them before. So he says, I can't be on that case because I don't have I can't be objective about that. So, which is the ethical thing to do. So he presides on 99% of our cases, but every once in a while we get one that he's not on. For the sake of today, we're going to pretend this is a case he's not familiar with at all. He doesn't know these people. And so he presides over the hearings from start to finish for this case. So that first hearing, and I'm going to put him there on the bench, okay? The first hearing is going to be that preliminary protective hearing. And you already noticed a couple of things on your sheet. One is that it occurs within 72 hours. Sometimes if the removal was on the weekend, it's going to stretch out a little bit longer, and that's understandable. It's like 72 hours, business type hours. So let me tell you about some people who are going to be present for that first hearing. We are going to have our, what did I do with her? CPS investigator who was on the scene when this child was removed. I'm going to sit her down. And she works for who? Child Protective Services, Department of Family and Children's Services. She's got to have an attorney that represents her, and he's not really dressed for court, but we're going to make him be the attorney. Okay, so the attorney who works for DFACS is called the Special Assistant Attorney General, and that's the next title on your worksheet. And then I put some blanks there so you would know kind of some names to put with this. In Lumpkin, we have Paul Stanley. Or Ridge, spelled just like the side of a mountain. His last name is Rariegh, Rariegh. So in White County, we have just Paul Stanley. So in Lumpkin, we flip back and forth between Ridge and Paul, and in White is just Paul. Lumpkin, Ridge, and Paul. White is just Paul. Okay. And then in Towns and Union, you guys have just a buffet of different SAGs. But the one that you're going to probably see the most is Stephanie Zach. Now, she's on maternity leave right now, but she's very competent. She's a little short little thing. Stephanie Zach is the primary SAG up here, and there is William Mercer. Is he doing the case that you're on right now?
No, it's Richard.
Richard is my favorite. Okay, I just said that on video. Richard is my favorite SAG in the whole entire circuit, and I tell him that. He knows that. So you will either have Stephanie, William, or Richard up here on the north side.
Last name on Richard?
Richard's last name is Highsmith, spelled just like it sounds. And Richard and his wife have 6 kids. They're just wonderful people. They're both attorneys.
You can just tell he's
a good person. And all the SAGs are wonderful. They're all very intelligent. They're all very well educated. Richard really cares a lot about the kids, and you can tell, and he really appreciates the CASA program. So that I tend to have a soft spot for him, and Stephanie too. I mean, they're always very helpful, and they go
who is
above
the larger man?
William Mercer is.
Why did I think it was
sometimes he wears suspenders and sneakers with his suit jacket. Yeah, different. And I don't know William as well. I mean, he's great, but I don't know him as well. And so I haven't had as much experience with him. But your SAG, keep in mind that the SAG is an attorney who works for DFACS. They will help you any way they can, but they have a client to represent, and their client is DFACS. So when we're in conflict with DFACS, which happens sometimes, they're going to stand up for their client. So, we have to sometimes pick our battles in CASA, but you want to be helpful and courteous and all that stuff, but keep in mind that that's not your attorney. That's the attorney that represents the state of Georgia, basically, okay? For all practical purposes, and if this was a criminal case, we would say this was the prosecutor. Okay, they are bringing the action on behalf of the state against the family of this little baby. Okay, All right, so at our preliminary protective hearing, we have Judge Clow, we have the DFACS team, which is at this juncture represented by the person who did that removal, and sometimes they have their supervisor there present in court too. We also have the SAG for the department. A lot of times the foster parents are present. They just come to let the judge see the child and know that the child is healthy and whole. We'll say that dad actually came out of the woods, or boyfriend, mom and her boyfriend are there. They're crying. They're upset. They want to see their baby. They want to, they want to fix this as fast as they can. And in the one other end of the room, you are going to have some other people that you may or may not know who these people are. And they are, let's say, the attorneys. They used to be called contract attorneys. And the judge, what he does is he has a pool of family law attorneys that he can call on at any time. And his assistant says, we have a preliminary protective hearing tomorrow. We will probably need attorneys because most of the families we work with cannot afford an attorney. So these folks are on deck to be a court-appointed attorney. Just like if you went to a criminal arraignment, there would likely be some criminal defense attorneys or the public defender's office there. These guys are basically like the public defender's office. So they are here to be assigned if needed. So who all needs an attorney?
Mother, the father, the
Child.
Yes, the mother, the father, and the child. Now, the mother we know she's the mother. She is the legal mother, all right? So she is going to get she's going to get an attorney appointed because she has the right to have an attorney. But at this preliminary protective hearing, she has to stand up and she fills out an affidavit saying why she needs appointed counsel. And that's very interesting to watch. If you haven't had a chance to watch that yet, she'll stand at the podium in front of the judge and the judge will swear her in and he will say, do you swear that everything on this application is true according to your understanding and belief? Yes, I do. Okay, so we're going to go over this in detail, and this might be a little embarrassing. He usually says that to him. This might be a little humiliating, but just know that we're here to help you and we're trying to help discern if you need to have an attorney appointed to represent you. What is your household annual income? I don't know. Did you file taxes last year? No. Do you work? I haven't worked in 2 years because I had a back injury. Oh, okay. So when was the last time you worked? 2016. Where did you work? Burger King. Okay. When did you quit working at Burger King? The end of 2016 because I slipped and fell and hurt my back. Do you get any disability payments? No. Do you get any public assistance? Well, I get food stamps. Okay, so you get food stamps. What about how do you afford to live where you're living? Well, my uncle sometimes pays my rent. Okay, does anybody live in the house besides you? Yeah, my boyfriend and the baby. And so the judge does his calculations, determines if based upon her income and the number of people living in the house, she will qualify for an attorney. Okay, 9 times out of 10, our folks all qualify for an attorney, unless they just have some hidden money that they, don't use to improve their life at all. And sometimes they have so much Social Security income from various people in the house that they don't qualify for a court-appointed attorney. In this case, we're going to say the mom did qualify for a court-appointed attorney, and we also have the attorney up here working for DFACS. And like you said, Roberta, the child also gets an attorney. We'll just leave the child there. We'll let the child attorney sit there with the foster parents for now. And there is a question as to whether or not we're going to give him an attorney, okay? So skip down past DFACS caseworker, DFACS supervisor. In this, and we're going to get to father, putative father, legal father. So like I said, a mom in the state of Georgia is anyone who has given birth to a child or adopted a child. So there's really just 2 routes to become a mother. But there are a variety of ways to become a father. And I've learned in this job that sometimes a child has 3 fathers because of the way that the law reads. So or 3 people that they could call father or regard as father. Okay, so let's say that this boy is here, this young man is here, and he says, I am the father. And she says, he is the father. Did you sign the birth certificate? Yes. Did you legitimate that child, which is
give him the name?
Is paying a fee and filing paperwork with the court. Well, no, I didn't know I had to do that. Well, guess what? You are a putative father, okay? So you see that title on your worksheet. A putative father is an alleged father. Okay, so if you go out and you get pregnant, ladies, and you say, let me think of a good example. You say, the father of my child is Brian Kemp, who's running for governor right now. Okay, let's just say that you do that. He is the putative father because according to you, he's the father.
Right.
And whatever occurred between you and whoever, nobody else has the business of knowing that. So until the child can be DNA tested, you can say this person is the father of my child. We had a gal in Lumpkin County who asserted that the father of her child was Eminem, the white rapper who lives in Detroit, all the way through TBR. She said he was the father. The SAG had to serve him with papers in Detroit. Of course, he didn't come. She would play rap music at visits and give her newborn popcorn and Mountain Dew. You know, she was mentally ill. But I'm sure that there are a lot of celebrities who get a lot of paperwork like this because you have people who, you know, in their mind, they had a rendezvous with this person or whatever. So at this point, this guy, and we're just going to call him Sam. We're going to say that Sam is her boyfriend, live-in boyfriend. Were you living with her at the time the baby was born? Yeah, I was. Okay. The law says a putative father is not a legal party to the case. But there's a little tricky loophole here, and it's with our judge. Our judge gives attorneys to putative fathers.
And that's
Because
just his discretion.
that's at his discretion. It's not against the law or anything. He just wants to give everybody an opportunity. And since a legitimation is a legal process, he knows at some point, if he wants to legitimate our little baby over here, he's going to have an attorney to do that. So until he's proven not to be the father or until he steps out of the case, our judge usually does give an attorney to the putative father. So at this point, Dad's going to get an attorney. Now, when do mom and dad get the same attorney?
Legitimately married?
When they're married. Yes, very good. So when mom and dad are married, when and if mom and dad are married, they and the law says if he married her before the birth of the child, he is the legitimate father. The law also says if he married her and assumed responsibility of the child after the birth, he is the legal father. So you see on here we have father, putative father, legal father. None of that says biological father.
Right.
So all of those are legal. We've had dads come in and legitimate a child without a DNA test because they are just so certain that that is their child and that's their business, and they're not
Do
legally.
they have to pay for the DNA test?
If they want a DNA test, it's usually part of the package to legitimate. But I've sat in the courtroom 2 times in 4 years where a dad said, "Nope, don't need a DNA test. She's mine." And it's a legal procedure, and then you are the legitimate father. So if they were married, they would have the same attorney unless it was a domestic violence case. So if these folks were married and he's been beaten on her or she's been beaten on him, they're going to separate them with different attorneys to represent their best interest at this point. Okay, who is not here in this scene?
The lady that brought the neighbor that brought the charge.
Okay, she's not here yet at this PPH. You'll also notice that CASA is not here. Now, the supervisors are usually there, so I'm going to pick her since she has yellow hair. She's going to be me. Okay, so your staff member from CASA is here for the PPH, taking notes, and you'll notice that we're the one party that does not have an attorney. So we are the only non-legal party in this whole mess. So I'm here usually sitting near DFAC somewhere, or Stephanie, or Nicole, or Rhonda. We have, a team of several of us. So your CASA supervisor is here, and they are taking notes. And when Dad gets up to apply for his attorney, we write down everything he says about where he used to work, why he doesn't work anymore, where he gets his money, where he lives, who he lives with. Same thing with Mom. We are taking very detailed notes so that when we do, if we assign this to a CASA, we can pass those notes along to the CASA, and they have some ground to plow to get started on their assessment. All right, so at the PPH, do you remember what the purpose of that preliminary protective hearing is?
That's to see if the
threshold is there, right?
To see if there was a reason for the emergency removal, okay? So this is kind of our first probable cause hearing, if you will. The preliminary protective hearing, do you want to read what it says on there?
is to determine whether there is probable cause to believe a child is dependent and whether protection and custody of a child is necessary to prevent abuse or neglect, pending the adjudication of hearing.
And so keep in mind that all of this at the preliminary protective hearing is just about the immediate safety, removal from harm, and physical custody of this child. We don't have legal custody of this child yet. The Department of Family and Children Services. There's physical custody and there's legal custody. Right now, mom still has legal custody. We have physical custody of this child, and she's in the foster home in a short-term shelter care type situation. Now, on the document that Stephanie brought in here, and you see it says dependency removal order. Every now and then, depending on who the SAG is that filed it, it will sometimes say shelter care order. It used to be called, back in the old days, it was always called an emergency shelter care order. So a child was removed, they need immediate shelter care. We need to do this within 72 hours. We need to get this in the courtroom, get it in front of the judge, make sure this baby is safe and cared for right now.
All right, so if you took a child on a Friday night, you have to have a hearing on a Monday. You told us that Mondays and Tuesdays are on. All right, so and Wednesdays and Thursdays are the other. So how does that work?
Anywhere the judge is, because he's in all 4 counties, is where that PPH happens. So say they took her on a Friday and they took her in Towns County. Monday is a White County court day typically. He's going to hear the PPH in White County. So all these people are traveling to Cleveland to hear it. If there's extenuating circumstances and they have to put it off till Tuesday, then it would be in Lumpkin County if that was a regular Lumpkin County court day.
The mother, which we never discussed whether she ever had transportation when we talked about the initial setup. All right, the mother has to find transportation to get to either Lumpkin or White. All right, what happens for failure to a parent?
Now, if they don't appear, we can't go forward unless they have been. The department has to prove that mom knew this was happening. And in other words, they say, did you perfect service? So the department lawyer here, the SAG, has to say, well, the CPS worker told mom, be in White County, 9 o'clock in the morning, Monday morning. She's not here. Then we're just going to go forward without her, or we're going to have a continuance. Because one of 2 things is going to happen at this hearing. They're going to prove they had reasonable cause to move this baby from the mom, or it's going to fall apart and the child is going to go home. Never happens. Never happens. I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, our judge is so careful and our department is so careful about who they remove, when they remove. I don't think I've ever seen a child go home at that PPH.
So
this hearing
cannot then move on until at some point in time you've got to see the parent at this preliminary hearing.
Yes.
The mother in this case, since the father has not signed. So if the father showed and the mother didn't, you would have a continuance.
Yes.
So it's all driven by the mother.
We can go forward without the mother, if she communicates to the department that she's not going to fight it. And some of this may be outside of my realm of expertise, but they also can waive the timelines for almost all of these hearings if the parents agree to waive those timelines. So if mom says, there's no way I can get to Cleveland, can we do this on Wednesday? Then she has communicated that she's willing to waive that hearing until Wednesday. Then sometimes that hearing would happen in her hometown, the next available option.
If it starts in White County, will it always be in White County? Okay.
No. It's going to bounce back to the legal county that it belongs in. And at the end of each hearing, we will the judge will make he'll put on the calendar when the next hearing is going to happen, with an eye on when can it happen in the home county where this baby is from. The PPHs are very fluid, and so because they're fluid, because they're an emergency hearing by nature, sometimes Rhonda will call me and say, hey, are you in Union County today? And I'm like, yeah, I'm here. Can you run over and do a PPH for me at 3 o'clock? Sure, I can do that. And it's a White County PPH, but rather than her drive up the mountain, I'm already here. That's why I say, if you were at the PPH, you'll see any number of CASA supervisors, just whoever happens to be kind of on deck at that point. So a lot of times your CASA supervisor, and we'll take a break here in just a minute after we do this section, but a lot of times your CASA supervisor, who's just basically here to gather information at this juncture, has already got somebody in mind based on what they know about this case. So let's just say that I knew that you love babies and you were willing to work with a baby. And so I'm thinking, I'm going to call Pat. I might, if I'm in your county, I might text you and say, hey, you want to come over to this PPH and see what's going on, just so you can kind of get eyes on all these players and see if this is a case that you might be interested in taking. So if that's the case, then let's see who looks like Pat. Well, you don't have gray hair, Pat.
No, I
I'll just
don't.
have to give you the gray hair. Okay, so here's our CASA volunteer if she happens to come
Hey,
that
I
day.
pay a lot of money for this.
You pay a lot of money to get rid of that gray, I bet. Okay, so I'm going to pause this real quick, and then we will just take a little restroom break.